A couple of days ago, we talked about Florida State's desire to leave the ACC and maybe come to the Big Ten, but we never really explored whether the feeling was mutual on the Big Ten side. We'll answer some of that today. Plus, a lot of quarterback news at Wisconsin and Nebraska. It's getting crazy over there. All that more coming up right here on Locked On Big Ten.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. It's good to see you again. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. We're going to talk about whether academics may get in the way of future Big Ten expansion. We'll explain all that. Plus, Matt Rule's quarterback situation at Nebraska has changed quickly, and Wisconsin seems to have their guy. Plus, we'll tune in. We'll find out what the Big Ten Network is doing this weekend with their classics and their live action. Hey, right now, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe down below and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. That way, you get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. So, earlier this week, Locked On Big Ten talked about the possibility of Florida State buying its way out of the ACC and heading over to the Big Ten. And there was one report this past weekend that suggested the Florida State Board of Trustees may make such an announcement within a month. By the way, we should point out that the Big Ten has given no confirmation on this on their end as of now. Now, given the ACC's recent slight being left out of the college football playoff and the fact that Florida State's president said this summer that he wanted an ACC exit strategy by the end of the year, and it is the end of the year now, we decided to give this a little bit of credence because of that scenario. And we weighed the pros and cons of this situation. A lot of you seem to like the story. Now, part of the story was wondering what school, if any, could or would join Florida State in the Big Ten if they were to come, because it makes more sense to come in pairs, right? That helps with scheduling purposes. And look, can we say with any certainty that Florida State or maybe Clemson, for example, would be the teams that could move to the Big Ten, or Miami, or North Carolina, or Independent Notre Dame? We always talk about them. But from a football standpoint, we always thought Florida State and Clemson were slam dunks to come on over to the Big Ten, or any conference for that matter. That would be a nice draw, right? Both are marquee names, ratings draws, and especially ratings draws from the coveted Deep South. However, in regard to both schools, neither may be the Big Ten's first choices. What? Why? Well, academics. That's right, academics. You heard me right. After considering big-time football and billion-dollar TV deals to cover their school sports, Big Ten presidents, they kind of think academics are important. They're funny that way. And Florida State and Clemson fall short in that category. And you're going, wait a minute, they're fine institutions. Yes, they are. Have you heard of the AAU? The Association of American Universities. It includes 71 distinguished research universities dedicated to improving human life through education and research. They really like words like innovation and scholarship and scientific progress and well-being for mankind. Of the 71 schools that belong to the AAU, 69 are in the United States and 2 are in Canada. Neither Florida State or Clemson belong to this prestigious list of schools. On the flip side, 13 of the 14 Big Ten teams do belong to this group. Only Nebraska does not. And I'm really not sure how the Big Ten let Nebraska in with this submission. It's really important to them, but they did. Nebraska's here. Glad to have them. But yeah, they're the ones that slip through, if you will, the academic cracks here. So maybe the fact that Nebraska is in without this accreditation, maybe it opens the door for a school like Florida State or Clemson to come in without the maybe football and football money will supersede academics. Maybe we'll just throw that out there as a possibility. By the way, I should point out that the 4 new schools coming to the Big Ten from the Pac-12 starting next year, USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington, they all belong to the AAU. They have the academic chops to join the Big Ten. You want to know why Washington State and Oregon State aren't coming over with Washington and Oregon? It's because they do not belong to the AAU. They're out. That's why. It's academics. So what could happen to Florida State and Clemson in this situation? Like the Big Ten just wouldn't take them. Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. That's the topic of conversation here, especially when you look at some of the other options. But when the ACC ultimately implodes, and I think they will, some schools like Clemson, for example, if Big Ten wouldn't take them and if the SEC wouldn't take them, they'd have to go running to like the Big 12 or something like that. Because I do think the ACC is going down in flames, or a very watered down version of it in the years to come. So back to our original question here. What other ACC team or teams would hypothetically join the Big Ten? Let's discuss that. Because there are plenty of other choices in the ACC that belong to the AAU accreditation. They're academic schools. They fit the bill of what the Big Ten likes. North Carolina is one of it. It's North Carolina, Pittsburgh, Virginia Duke, Georgia Tech, Miami, and of course, independent Notre Dame, but they affiliate with the ACC. They all check the box. They're all part of the AAU. Now, North Carolina, there may be some competition for their services if everything blows up in the ACC. I think the SEC would like to have them and be in the state of North Carolina as well. So with the Big Ten, I think North Carolina really fits the Big Ten athletically, especially with their basketball. I think it would be a great fit. Pittsburgh is another one. You say Pittsburgh, really? Well, yeah. The thing I like about Pittsburgh is when you think about it, Penn State doesn't really have a natural geographic rival in the Big Ten. Think about it. Think about rivalry weekend at the end of the year. Ohio State is playing Michigan. Indiana is playing Purdue. All these long-standing traditions. Penn State is playing at Michigan State. And that's not like a natural rivalry. It's just kind of filling out the schedule. And Michigan State can't play Michigan because they're busy playing Ohio State. Nevertheless, you throw Pittsburgh in there with Penn State. Now maybe you have something. It's interesting. Virginia, another interesting choice. Duke, I don't know, private, smaller school, maybe. I mean, now they're good at football and everything. They're always great at basketball. Georgia Tech, not great athletically, but it gives you an open door to a major TV market like Atlanta. And then there's Miami. If Florida State isn't going to get in, Miami, they've got the academic chops, allows you into Florida. And the Miami market for TV is better than the Tallahassee market. So maybe that's the path the Big Ten would go toward expansion. And of course, there's always Notre Dame, part of that conversation. Bottom line is, we don't know if the Big Ten would allow a school with or without AAU accreditation at this point. We do know that Florida State is working hard toward getting it. They thought they were going to be accredited this past year. Didn't work out. They came up just a little short. They're still working toward it. Maybe that's part of their thinking. Maybe that's part of the deal. Get the accreditation academically, then they can leave the ACC, and then they could go to the Big Ten. Maybe that's the long play here for Florida State. I don't know. But yeah, Clemson, on the other hand, like I said, they may only have an option to stay in a weaker ACC or maybe go to a Big 12 or something like that. But if you think the ACC just got snubbed for the college football playoff because it wasn't good enough, try making it a weaker conference in the future. And then really the schools are going to want to start leaving left and right for sure. So anyway, those are just some quick thoughts on academics versus athletics, if you will. I want to continue to talk about that. I want to get your reaction to it as well on X or Twitter at Talk Big Ten number 10. Also on YouTube. Don't forget our website, talkbig10number10.com as well. Coming up, I want to talk about some quarterbacks, and this is the best part of the transfer portal story. It looks like Wisconsin has their guy, pretty big name too, with Luke Fickell. We'll tell you about that, and also the quarterback situation at Nebraska just got really, really interesting really fast. So right before we started taping this podcast, all that coming up in just 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It's just you and the numbers, and it's a lot of fun. You can pair players together, 2 players, up to 6 players, throw some stats and say more than or less than those stats. For example, you could take a game coming up this weekend, the Dolphins Jets, and you could say two or more than 2 touchdowns, and maybe Zach Wilson less than 2 touchdowns, and you get them both, then you're a winner. It's fantastic. It's a lot of fun. You can mix leagues. You can throw in a Steph Curry or LeBron with a football player. It's great. It's a lot of fun. So check it out. Prize Picks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that is prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, let's talk some quarterbacks because people are moving. We got ourselves transfer portal, and it is hopping back and forth. Let us start, first of all, with the situation at Wisconsin. Former Miami Hurricanes quarterback Tyler Van Dyke, who started the past three seasons for the Hurricanes, going to go play for Luke Fickell and Wisconsin. Now, Van Dyke, I'm down here in Florida, so we see a lot going on with Van Dyke at Miami. He's had an up and down career. Some weeks people love him. Some people are like, ugh, what's going on? In all fairness, I mean, he's pretty good. He did play under 3 different offensive coordinators every single year that he was at Miami. So that's hard. He was the ACC Rookie of the Year in 2021. And this past season, the Hurricanes finished 7-5, and he completed a career high 66% of his passes, 2,700 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Now, as far as Wisconsin goes, Luke Fickell arrived this year. He touted that the Badgers would be changing everything up. They're normally a power running team, as you know, and that they would feature this air attack, right, with him and offensive coordinator Phil Longo. But it never really developed this year, and Fickell hit the portal last year trying to find a quarterback to fit this, and he got Tanner Mordecai out of SMU. Now, Tanner Mordecai put up some big passing numbers at SMU, got to Wisconsin, and it never happened. He became a running quarterback and a game manager and really didn't sling it. Plus, they were built for running. This is the team that Fickell inherited. Braylon Allen is pretty special running back. They had a huge offensive line, so that's what they had to do. That's where that was their bread and butter. Got a 7-5 season, bowl bound, all that. But now it's going to be year 2 for Luke Fickell. Wants a different quarterback in there, and he's got one. So we'll see how this works out for them over there. All right. And let's talk about Nebraska's situation, because that is changing by the moment. Remember a couple of weeks ago, we talked about how Matt Rule kind of lowered the expectations of Husker Nation a little bit. Said the transfer portal is going to cost between $1 and $2 million just to get a quarterback here. All right. So I'm old school, right? I like to recruit guys. I like to develop players, do it the hard way, the long way. That's my way. Then all of a sudden, he appeared to be in the market for not 1, but 2 quarterbacks, right? The story came out that Kyle McCord of Ohio State was interested, and a lot of people said that was a slam dunk that was going to happen. By the way, just a few hours ago before we started putting this podcast together, McCord announced through social media that he is not coming to Nebraska and that his options are still open. And hey, world, still recruit me. I am available. So that helps explain one thing, because at the time that everybody was saying Kyle McCord to Nebraska was a slam dunk, they were also apparently in the market to flip 5-star recruit Dylan Raiola, who is coming out of high school, was going to go to Georgia. It was a Georgia commit, still is as of this day. So, we're sitting there. Why would a 5-star recruit want to come in to Nebraska if he's already going to have to be behind Kyle McCord? Don't have to worry about Kyle McCord anymore. He's not coming. And maybe they knew that a few days ago. And maybe that's why this story from Raiola started catching some wind. So I find that very, very interesting here. And look, maybe McCord realized that he was going to be running a lot of RPO at Nebraska, the Husker offense, and being asked to rush 100 yards a game. And he's like, no, man, I don't want to do that. I'm going to look elsewhere. I'm a pocket passing quarterback. Maybe that has something to do with it. So back to Dylan Raiola. Why would he spurn Georgia now and go to Nebraska? Remember, he moved across the country to go to high school in Georgia, so he could be near Georgia. Now, maybe he won't go to Georgia. He's going to go to Nebraska. Well, first of all, his uncle Donovan Raiola, happens to be the offensive line coach at Nebraska. And his dad, Dominic, was one of the best centers in school history at Nebraska and ended up having a 14-year career as the center of the Detroit Lions. Maybe he feels like he's coming home. Let's go to Nebraska. That means something to kids sometimes. But that's one explanation as to what is going on. So anyway, and now with McCord out of the picture, Raiola could come in and start right away. So there's a couple of, and I don't know if he has that guarantee at Georgia, right? Georgia's like got 2 deep 5-star freshmen every year coming in. Maybe he goes to Nebraska. He can have a clean shot at that starting job. Maybe. Could be in his thinking right now. There could also be nil money, name, image, and likeness money involved as well. So you can bet that's a factor in it one way or the other. Just remember, again, 2 weeks ago, Matt Rule said, yeah, $1 to $2 million. Well, that's a starting point for the conversation for a quarterback. Maybe that's coming together. And that's about the time the Raiola story started to surface. Other quarterback news. Yesterday, we told you Michigan State quarterback Sam Leavitt is headed to Arizona State. Now another Spartans quarterback has found another home, and that would be Noah Kim. By the way, remember, Noah Kim was named the starter at the beginning of the season when Mel Tucker was still the head coach there at Michigan State. He started 5 games, and then they started playing quarterback roulette there with 3 different quarterbacks. He is going to go to Coastal Carolina, back to the East Coast. I think off the top of my head, he's from the Virginia area. Anyway, pretty a lot closer to home, and we'll see. And yeah, that's right. He was from Virginia. In fact, he was part of Mark D'Antonio's final recruiting class at Michigan State before Mel Tucker took over. All 3 scholarship quarterbacks on Michigan State have hit the transfer portal in East Lansing, and that was following the hiring of Jonathan Smith, who came from Oregon State. 2 of the 3 have found homes already. Still waiting on Caton Hauser to see where he announces he is going. All right, so that's the latest on football. Let's take a peek at basketball, if we will. Tom Izzo and Michigan State. We'll stick with Michigan State here for a minute. This team is off to a very slow start. That is an understatement. They started ranked number 4 in the country, and it just hasn't happened. Spartans' big men are struggling offensively and defensively down in the post. And following their 77-70 loss to Nebraska on Sunday night, Izzo in the media, talking to the media, started joking about other options at the post. And he said right now, Nick Sanders and Steven Izzo are options right now. Obviously, that's tongue-in-cheek because Nick Sanders, who's the son of Barry Sanders, by the way, he's only 5'10", and Steven Izzo, his son, is only 5'8". They're not going to be playing in the post. Both are walk-ons as well. But right now, he's anything goes. Anything goes. Let's check in with Minnesota basketball. Let me before I get off of Michigan State, I'll get to Minnesota in a minute. They do have another option at the post, but Izzo's kind of easing this kid in. He's a 6'11" kid, freshman Xavier Booker. Maybe he'll be an option. He's a 5-star McDonald's All-American. He hasn't played 3 of their last 4 games, and again, their lack of production inside is allowing teams to get very aggressive defensively, and now they can go out and guard the shooting guards and making just things very difficult. So look for Xavier Booker to get a little more playing time. He's only 220 pounds, which is, for his size, it's kind of thin to be battling underneath in the Big Ten. He's still learning how to play. Michigan State's at 4-5 right now, 0-2 in the Big Ten. They play Saturday versus number 6 Baylor at Little Caesars Arena in Detroit. That'll be a big test for them. So anyway, that's the latest on Michigan State basketball. Now, the latest with what's going on with Minnesota Golden Gopher basketball. Guard Braden Carrington is stepping away from the basketball team. He says there are areas in his life that he must improve. He's got to step away from the program, put himself first, a mental check, whatever you want to call it. So we hope for the best for him. He says he plans on returning to the team when the timing is right. He started all 10 games for the Gophers already and averages 6 points and 5 rebounds and almost 2 assists per game. So it's a little bit of production there that they're going to be losing. And he even played the other night despite an ankle injury. He played 21 minutes in the Gophers' 20-point win over Florida Gulf Coast University on Saturday. Coach Ben Johnson's got his hands full. He's already without leading scorer Dawson Garcia, and he's been dealing with an ankle injury as well. So there is some good news, though. By the way, did you see Elijah Hawkins for the Gophers? He set a school record with 17 assists in Tuesday night's 101-65 win over IUPUI. 17 assists. It's pretty awesome. Next up for the Gophers, they host Ball State on the 21st. If you're catching this on the Thursday that we released it, of course, men's basketball, Jacksonville State is at number 23, Wisconsin at 8 o'clock on the Big Ten Network tonight. Nothing going on the women's slate for this evening. I want to take a moment, though, and thank all you guys for making Locked On Big Ten such a huge success. Thank you for making us a first listen every day. You everydayers out there, make this thing go. Meanwhile, if you have or haven't, or if you haven't, go ahead and subscribe to this, if you don't mind, on YouTube. Share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten with somebody you know is a Big Ten fan or grad. Spread the word. That's how we grow. Locked On Big Ten, your team every single day. Always appreciate that. And in addition to Locked On Big Ten, Locked On is launching the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's already up and running. It's called Locked On Sports Today. It's here for you 24/7, and it covers the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, and it's national shows. It's got this shows on it. All so check it out. It's a lot of fun, and it's on 24/7. So feel free to subscribe to that right after you subscribe to us as well. All right, we are going to take a peek since we're getting ever closer to the weekend. And we're going to see what's coming up on the Big Ten Network with Big Ten Classics, we always like to look at, and their live scheduling so you can plan, okay? All that coming up in just 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. I want to tell you about FanDuel. You can score early and often for the rest of the NFL season. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. It's $150 if your team wins. And if you've been thinking about it, kicking the can down the road, procrastinating, jump on. Be like all the rest of your friends who are on it. Everybody I know is on it. So check it out with FanDuel. Lots going on. I told you tonight, if you're catching this on Thursday, we got Thursday night football, Chargers and Raiders. Raiders 3-point favorites. I like that. And I like the under at 33. We got a bunch of backup quarterbacks going here. I think even Aiden O'Connell may be benched. We know that Justin Herbert's injured. I don't expect a lot of points in this game. So just a tip from me to you. Point spreads, player props, over-unders like this. It's all there at your fingertips. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the rest of the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, so I always like to take a look at what is going on the Big Ten Network. I like their Big Ten Classics. I love sitting, kicking back and watching. We're going to have a rainy weekend where I'm at here, so I'm going to be watching a lot of TV. Check these out, live events or some of the classics from the good old days. We'll put them on the screen here. We can take a look. And if you're listening on audio only, I'll explain what's going on. First of all, we'll start things on Friday, December 15th. These are Eastern times at 11 a.m. Eastern time. We got the Minnesota Football Classic 2002, the Music City Bowl, Minnesota versus Arkansas. And I'll refresh your memory here. This is where Dan Nystrom tied an NCAA record as he kicked 5 field goals for the Gophers in their 29-14 win over number 22 Arkansas. At 4 o'clock, Big Ten Football on 60. That's where they edit from snap to snap. You can watch a whole game in 1 hour. They got the Michigan Penn State game from back November 11th, just a little more than a month ago. Remember, Jim Harbaugh, suspended for this game, was on the team playing didn't get to go to the sidelines because he learned he was suspended again. Blake Corum went out there and rushed for 145 yards and 2 touchdowns to help number 3 Michigan beat number 10 Penn State. And then at 6 o'clock, more Big Ten football at 60, the Ohio State-Michigan game just from a couple of weeks ago, where Blake Corum rushed for 88 yards and 2 touchdowns. Michigan was number 3 at the time. They beat number 2 Ohio State in that one. And then at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time on Friday, we've got Big Ten football in 60, the championship game, Michigan and Iowa from Indianapolis, just on December 2nd. Blake Corum with 2 touchdowns as the then number 2 Wolverines beat number 16 Iowa in Indianapolis. And then late 10 o'clock, Michigan Football Classic is the 1998 Rose Bowl, Michigan and Washington State. Brian Greasy in that one threw for 251 yards and 3 touchdowns as number 1 Michigan beat number 7 Washington State 21-16 to claim the national title as they went undefeated. Good times back then. All right, now let's go to Saturday, the 16th at noon Eastern time. Big Ten men's basketball. It's Georgia Tech versus Penn State. At 2:30, more men's basketball. Eastern Michigan is at Chrysler Arena taking on Michigan. At 4:30, more men's basketball. Florida A&M taking on the Iowa Hawkeyes, who also, like Michigan State, off to a very slow start here. And at 7 o'clock, Big Ten women's basketball. Speaking of Iowa, they host Cleveland State. A good chance to watch Caitlin Clark, the best female basketball player in the entire country. And then on Sunday at 1 o'clock Eastern, Big Ten men's basketball, Colgate at Illinois. Illinois should have a very good year this year. And then women's basketball at 4 o'clock, sticking with Illinois, they host Missouri. So that is the slate on the Big Ten Network over the weekend, a mixture of classics and live broadcasts for you. So we do that at the every Thursday. I always like to give you a heads up, a peek around the corner, what's coming up over the weekend over there. Some good stuff. So check it out. In the meantime, if you want to interact with me now, over the weekend, whatever, of course, you can follow us on Twitter or X at TalkBig10, number 10, the website, TalkBig10, 10.com, and on YouTube as well. I'm always mowing through those comments. Very interesting. Some of you are funny. Some of you are very smart. Some of you are mean. It's all right. I can take it. Be sure to subscribe. All right. Subscribe below and follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. And again, don't forget Locked On Sports Today, the new 24/7 sports streaming channel on Locked On YouTube as well. Feel free to subscribe to that as well. So been a very, very interesting day. We'll keeping an eye on the transfer portal for any news there. And we're getting ready to head into a weekend. And then before you know it, all the bowl games are going to be coming up. We'll start previewing those and knocking those off one at a time here. Look forward to that. That's always a lot of fun. So that's all coming up. Thank you for our visit today. I enjoyed it as always, and I can't wait till we do it again tomorrow. Hope to see you there. Tell your friends about us. Remember, we'll make this thing grow. Get even more people involved, especially if you know a Big Ten alum or friend that would be interested if they haven't heard of us yet. That would be great. Tell them all about Locked On Big Ten. For Locked On Big Ten, I'm Craig Sheeman, and we'll see you next time.